Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 5-Minute Life Changer podcast. And actually, this is not just another episode of the 5-Minute Life Changer podcast. This happens to be the 40th episode of the Life Changer podcast series, and that's a milestone. And I have all of you to thank for that. Thank you for listening to these episodes. Thank you based on feedback I'm getting from you. Thank you for all this wonderful positive feedback concerning these episodes. And this is a very humble Robert Landau, your podcast host. This episode I call Visualization for Realization. And if you do what I suggest you do during this episode, let's just say that I think you're going to be pretty happy with the results. And that is based on personal experience. In this series, whatever I suggest you do, whatever I recommend you do, whatever tools I share with you, I wouldn't share with you if these tools haven't worked for me. And this one is a great one for you to use. So, first let me explain what I mean by visualization for realization. This episode is based on the belief that if you can think it, it will happen. For me, it's just another way of saying ask and you will receive. There are many different ways to ask so that you can receive. One is through prayer. Another is through meditation. Another is through creative visualization. And that last option, that last definition is what I'm referring to here. I believe if you can see it, if you can feel it, then it will come eventually into your path. It will manifest for you. Here's an example. Many of you know that I was an international cruise director for many years, almost 10 years, 300 ports of call on close to 400 cruises. How did I ever manage that? Because that's like 8 lifetimes of work. Well, I was a struggling actor in New York City. Things were actually going well. I don't want to say struggling, but you kind of have to struggle if you want to live in New York City as an actor. It ain't that easy. And so things were going well for me, but I wanted something more. I wasn't happy with the acting industry as it was back then. So I was looking for something different. A friend of mine suggested that I might be happy taking all the acting training that I had and experience and working on cruise ships. She thought it was a good idea for me to get out of the city, to clear my head, and see what I wanted to do next. Little did I know that that was what I wanted to do next. What was that? Working on cruise ships. So how was I going to get there? I had no experience. So, every morning I would wake up at 6 a.m. I lived in the East Village, East 6 between B and C, if you're familiar with New York City, and that's very close to the East River. So every morning I would get up at 6 and jog along this path that goes along the East River. And one morning I thought, you know what? Why don't I pretend, feel, also visualize that I'm not jogging along the smelly East River at 6:10 a.m. that morning. Instead, I was jogging around a promenade deck of a brand new cruise ship plying the refreshing waters of the Atlantic Ocean. And I thought, wow, this is a cool fantasy to step into that morning. And I did. And every subsequent morning for 3 weeks, I did that. And I would visualize and feel, with my eyes open, you can't jog with your eyes closed, I would feel and imagine that I was working on this incredibly new cruise ship. Well, 3 weeks passed, and one Sunday morning, I got a call from another friend of mine, and she had seen an ad for an entertainment agency in New York City that puts cruise staff on cruise ships, and she suggested that I call them. Now, do you see what's going on here? Ask and you will receive, but you have to ask. And I want you to understand that I didn't only do this while I was jogging every morning, this visualization, this feeling, right? I would also, before I would go to sleep every night, actually create a little movie in my head that I was working on a cruise ship and very profitable, very happy doing so. It fulfilled my soul, and I never stopped visualizing that. Well, I decided to call that entertainment agency that next Monday. She called me suggesting that I do so on Sunday. I called the agency on Monday, and this is how the conversation went. Hello, my name's Robert Landau, and I would love to work on any of the ships that you put crew staff on. And they said, okay, we got a couple of questions. Number one, have you ever worked on a cruise ship before? And I said, no. And I thought, oh gosh, they're going to hang up. I have no experience. The job interview on the phone is over. And I said, thinking that, okay, guys, sorry, I probably shouldn't have called you. And they said, no. Don't hang up. We got a couple more questions. And I said, okay. Second question they asked me was, well, you can't be a cruise director because you have no experience. You can't be an assistant cruise director because you have no experience. But we have one position available on one ship as a socializer. Do you know, Robert, what a socializer is? And I had to say no again. I said, guys, I'm sorry. I don't know what a socializer is. I think you probably should find somebody who does. I probably shouldn't have called you like I originally thought. And they said, no. One more question. Do you know how to dance? And I thought, well, I can say yes to that. Disco was all the rage back then, and I'd been to Studio 54, so I said, yeah, I can dance. And they said, good, come to our office tomorrow, we'll talk to you more about it. So to make a long story short, they put me on a ship to replace a socializer as part of the staff on that ship that had to get off that ship because he could no longer evade doing jury duty. A socializer dances with every single lady on a cruise ship between the hours of 6 p.m. and 2 a.m. with a 30-minute break for dinner, and you better know how to ballroom dance. I did not. On that first cruise of mine, there were over 300 single ladies, all seeming to be over the age of 117. Well, it was a nightmare, but I learned how to ballroom dance. 3 weeks became a season. Next season, that cruise line asked me back as an assistant cruise director, did that with them for 3 years, and then I became a cruise director for close to 10 years. All because, if you ask me, I saw it first and then stepped into the picture that I had created into reality. If I can do it, so can you. So, this is what you do. If you want something to appear in your path, make sure it's within reason. I mean, don't say that you want to be the first person ever to get out of a spaceship and walk around on Mars, right? Make it somewhat reasonable, somewhat attainable, and then visualize it. Do a little meditation and visualize it. See yourself there already. What would that feel like? How would you feel being there? And do this as an exercise each and every day. Don't let mind chatter stop you. Your mind can say, oh, that's so silly. How is that going to happen now? Come on. No, you're closing the door on something that could be your next big stop on the journey in your life. Visualization is an actual painting that you have created over the days that you do this. And then one day you will be able to step into the painting that you created and it will be real. But it ain't going to happen unless you do it. It ain't going to happen unless you stop your negative mind chatter stopping you from getting there. Ask and you will receive. You are a Steven Spielberg in that we have been given this wonderful gift that when we close our eyes, we can create a movie with us in it. Our creative imagination is amazing. Use it to your advantage. I created my entire cruise directing career with visualization. I would be in a port of call, and I would see a brand new ship across the pier. And I would go on that ship, get a postcard from the purser's desk, and go back on my ship, tape that postcard picture of that ship on the mirror in my stateroom, and every morning before I would get out of bed, I would look at that ship, feeling what it would feel like, imagining, seeing what it would be like being a cruise director on that ship. And lo and behold, that specific visualization, when my contract finished with the ship that I was on, I was home for only 2 months before I got a call from that cruise line asking me to cruise direct on that ship, and I never had even sent them a resume. This works. Believe and you will receive. Thank you for listening to the 40th episode of the 5-Minute Life Changer. This has been Robert Landau. Thank you for going on this ocean journey with me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.